Over the past 12 months, I would say one of the biggest things that I've learned is a lesson in self-love. And this isn't even a lesson I knew I needed. This was something that was happening that I became aware of through everything I had to deal with in 2024. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go listen to our episode in November where I talk about all the lessons I learned in 2024. Um, but one of those lessons was self-love. And a lack of self-love can show up in a lot of different ways that really does affect this business, and in ways that you may not even recognize. Things like judgment, not putting out the content that you know you want to or need to how you treat people, how you treat your audience, how you treat your family and people in your life, how you treat your coworkers or employees or team. It shows up in a lot of different ways. And we did this episode, I believe, last summer. And I wanted to play it again just because it was such an important episode and one that held a lot of power for me when we recorded it. And next week we will resume back with brand new episodes, but this one was a big one, a powerful one, and one that I'm still learning. And we may even have to one day do a follow up to this episode. But again, if you're having trouble finding a life of peace, having confidence in the business, this is probably the episode for you. So if that sounds good to you, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, not so much about messaging, but a little bit more about self-love and the importance of that inside of your business and life. And I know some of you, if you were like me a few years ago, would be like, oh man, self-love, what do we need that for? But it is such an important piece that often gets overlooked inside of business. And we can find that we beat ourselves up. We get into a lot of judgment. We get into a lot of guilt. Maybe we get into a lot of fear. And a lot of those things actually stop us from uncovering our message, from uncovering the messaging that's going to work, from uncovering the offers and the direction that we need to go in. It also is going to affect the way we interact with students. It's going to interact with the way we work with clients or even our team. And this is a topic that I didn't even pay much attention to until really the last year or so, and have been kind of on this journey of discovering more and more self-love, where I have beat myself up too much, and is one of those things where I just wasn't aware of until one day someone told me, he's like, Brandon, do you realize you're so hard on yourself? I'm like, yeah, because I want to be successful and I don't want to, I want to have the best results and blah, 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 blah. And they said something along the lines of like, yeah, but if that's what you want, you can have that. You can still be successful and motivated and work hard without beating yourself up. And I was like, oh, very interesting. And then through a series of meditations and things that I've been doing, started to just become more self-aware of where I wasn't loving myself inside of the business. And it affects the business, whether you believe it does or not. Those sort of emotions and vibrations and energy and frequency that you're operating at, they don't benefit you. They don't benefit the business. They don't keep it moving forward and growing, at least not to the level of what you want. And so what I wanted to do in this episode is talk about some of the realizations I made about self-love. And we will talk about it in self-love in the realm of your personal life. But I also wanted to talk about self-love through the lens of business and messaging as well. And so for those of you that are inside of NGM, we do a lot of work around uncovering who you are, remembering who you are, getting to the root of who you are, finding your purpose and your dharma, because I believe to my core, you're not going to have great messaging if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, or you're doing something you think you should be doing, or you're doing something because you think it's going to make you successful, or you're doing something because your parents told you to, or that's what you got your degree in. So we have to remove these structures that we've put around what we do in order to find our best messaging in this sort of space, in sort of this industry. So what I wanted to do and start off with and just help you identify some areas of where you may be lacking in self-love inside of your business. The first and foremost, like one of the quotes I got as I was in a silent session, as meditating and things like that, something that entered my head was around judgment. And you can measure the amount of self-love that you have from the amount of judgment you show others. So the amount of judgment you have is a reflection of how much self-love you have. And what I started to realize is when I would look at other people in the space, or I would get into like, why me, or how are they so much better, or this or that, you start to realize all of that comes from a place of just being hard on yourself, or judging yourself, or not living in self-love and self-acceptance. Self-acceptance and self-love, there is no judgment of other people. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. And so you can look around and see, am I judging other people? Am I judging what they're doing? Am I thinking they're doing something wrong or not the best way? Or do I have an opinion on what they're doing? Like, none of that stuff really matters, because you're your own person and you should be in your own lane. But when you live in self-love and self-acceptance, you feel more whole, you feel more healed. And the idea of judging someone else, or having an opinion on what someone else is doing, it just doesn't exist, because you're in this state of my own self-acceptance. And usually what happens when we're judging other people is it comes from an insecurity that we have. So like if you're judging someone for dancing and pointing in a TikTok or something like that, you would be insecure if that was you, therefore now you judge. Or if you're insecure, maybe you're making fun of someone's appearance. And that again stems from insecurity, because if you had that appearance that they have, you would feel insecure or whatever, embarrassed. And that again is a lack of self-love and self-worth. And the reason why this is really important, especially in a business setting, is that judging other people doesn't actually grow your business. It takes time, it takes energy, and it puts you in a frequency or vibration that is not conducive with where you want to go, to growth, to discovering your own purpose, to doing whatever it is you're going to do. Think about it. If someone's judging you inside of your business, does their judgment affect your growth? No, unless you let it, but them judging you is not going to stop you from growing. So if you're doing that to other people, it doesn't affect them in any way. It just affects you. And so when we start to heal that side of us, and we start to live in more self-love and acceptance and accepting where we are, we start to move our energy and our focus and our thoughts into a direction that is more conducive and in alignment with the growth that we want to see in our business. And we hear people say it all the time. We hear people say all the time, like, stay in your own lane, do your own thing, yada, yada, yada. And that's like great as a quote, but a lot of the times there's things that come up, automated emotions and feelings and past traumas that come up that cause us to want to judge. And the first thing we have to do is just become aware of that's what we're doing and being able to stop it. So remember, the amount of judgment you have is a reflection of how much self-love you have. And so if you find yourself judging other people and what they're doing, we may want to take a step back and reflect on that. Another way that self-love, a lack of self-love may show up inside of your life and business is guilt. Feeling guilty for not being farther along, or a launch didn't go the way you wanted it to go, or content isn't performing the way you want. You're doing what others are doing and it's just not performing. Maybe you have guilt around team members, or you had a reaction to a team member and you weren't proud of that reaction and now you feel guilty for it. Or even a student, maybe a student kind of got underneath your skin and you kind of snapped on them, or, whatever it may be. You have to get to a point of, like, with self-love and self-acceptance of, we're human and we're going to make mistakes, and you have to give yourself some grace. You have to give yourself some grace for making those mistakes. You have to be able to apologize, or not apologize, but maybe apologize to yourself and accept that apology, but living in that guilt, it doesn't do anything to move the needle. It doesn't do anything to fix the actual problem. So if there is something that you feel guilty about, there's no point in living in that guilt, but you also want to clean up any messes that you may have. So if you did talk to someone in a way you weren't proud of, you can have that conversation with them. You can forgive yourself for that, for making those mistakes, and adjust your actions moving forward. And it's just kind of a beautiful thing, because as we start to uncover and become self-aware, okay, this is guilt. This is a lack of self-love. This is why I felt guilty. This is the action I did. Therefore, I'm going to be committed and have the self-awareness to not make those commitments in the future. What starts to happen is that becomes a habit, and that habit becomes the way you are over time. And then you just become a person who doesn't do those things anymore. And then the guilt kind of goes away. But again, you can, even if you don't change your actions, the feeling guilty is a choice. And for me, I'm getting myself to a place where it's like, I know where I want to go. I know what I want to have in my life. And I know what emotions, feelings, and actions things I need in order for that to happen. And I know that guilt is not one of those things. Guilt can be an indicator of like, okay, there's something here that you went against your values. Let's explore that. But we don't need to live in the guilt of that. So that became something that I became really aware of, is that I don't want guilt inside of the business. And again, just loving and giving myself some grace. Another way that self-love, a lack of self-love, will show up is blaming yourself for mistakes, failures. When things don't go awry, or things do go awry, things don't go the way they're planned, you blame yourself. And again, I want to be very clear, because I think taking responsibility for things is very important, but there's a difference between blaming yourself and taking responsibility. Blaming yourself leads to guilt. It leads to, I did something bad. It leads to shame. Taking responsibility is actually the opposite. Taking responsibility is acknowledging, yeah, I didn't do what I wanted to do, or I didn't do what I said I was going to do, or I did mess up there. But taking responsibility allows for you to learn, allows for you to grow, allows for you to be self-aware. It allows for you to create change without any of the negative emotions attached to it. And what I have found to be true with me is that I was really good at blaming myself for things that didn't go as planned or didn't hit the results we wanted. But I also will, at the same side of the equation, I also wasn't good at giving myself credit for when things went great. I was not like when things went really great, I would sit down and go like, man, let's feel really proud about ourselves today. Let's feel really accomplished. Let's give ourselves a pat on the back. It was like, I would blame myself for when things went awry or didn't go as planned, but I also wouldn't blame myself or give myself the credit when things went really well. And so that creates an imbalance. It creates a lack of balance inside of you as the business owner. You get the worst of both worlds when you start to do that. And so you have to be careful about blaming yourself. Another area where a lack of self-love will show up is blaming others, blaming your team, blaming, students or whatever it may be. And you have to understand when you do that, it's just a reflection of you and your leadership, your process. I'm a firm believer that you can't give what you don't have. So what that means is you can't give what you don't have. Is if you don't have self-love and self-acceptance, you can't accept and love other people. It starts with you. It has to start with you always. And when we lack that, then what happens is we blame others. We blame the external world. We blame everything other than ourselves. And so loving yourself is far more important than people think of, just like, oh yeah, I'm just happy and I accept myself. No, it's the more and deeper you love yourself, the more deeply you get to love others, the more respect you can show others, whether that's team members or students or family members or whatever it may be. And so when we start to blame other people, again, it's a reflection of who we are and the leadership we've been showing. And if we haven't been using or showing leadership, of true love, of true support, of true pushing people to their full potential, if we haven't been living in that, it means we probably don't have it inside of ourselves. We don't think it's possible for us. Therefore, we can't give it to others. And what that leads to is blaming others, blaming this, blaming. And then again, all of this stuff leads to a lack of growth, no change, continuing to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And that leads me to the next thing is you have to ask yourself, how many times have you said, why am I not here yet? Why am I not there yet? I have these goals. I have these ambitions. I have these things but no matter what I do, I'm not there yet. And this person's there and that person's there and this, and we get into this victimhood, this victim cycle of why am I not there yet? And that's just a lack of self-acceptance and being okay with where you're at and living in just gratitude and being okay with where you're at, you know? So anyways, yeah, I have a lot of these friends that are farther along inside of the space. Some of them got started after I did, and they're way farther along than me. And I had to get to a point where I'm like, you know, I found myself judging them a little bit, like, but those are my friends. And I'm like, why am I judging my friends? And I realized it's because I didn't, love myself to the full potential. I didn't have self-acceptance and I didn't accept where I was. And then I started to go like, well, I'm just, you know what? I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm good with where I'm at. I accept where I'm at. And when you get to that level of just being happy and okay and just accepting where you're at, it's like this weight off your shoulders that you get to now be more creative, and you get to be a creator, and you have more connection to source or God or the universe or whatever it is you want to call it. And you start to make shifts and changes inside the business because you're proud of who you are and what you're creating. And you have just a deeper connection to wherever ideas come from, deeper connection to your purpose, to your dharma, to your soul. And when you don't have that love and acceptance for where you are, who you are, what you're doing, you just get consumed in this energy vortex that just steals your thoughts and your creativity and the love and the impact that you can have on other people. So for me, some of the ways that I started to change this and shift this and implement more self-love into my life and into my business started with honoring my purpose, dharma, and message, which can shift at any time. And when I say honor that purpose and dharma is knowing what it is you want, knowing what it is, or knowing who you are, being able to recognize where there may have been a structure put in place, a belief that you took on that isn't true. Maybe it's like your parents told you you're going to be a doctor because all of our family is doctors. And now you just are like in this field, in the medical field, or doing a medical course, and all you want to do is teach people like spirituality or something. So go honor that purpose and that calling. Whatever excites you, go do it. That is a part of self-love, is honoring that internal feeling of this is what I want. That internal feeling of this is what I'm put on this planet to do. And there's so many people that don't do it. In fact, we have people who come into our program who do everything right, all the right exercises, say all the right words. I look at the messaging and like, the messaging's great. I don't see any red flags, but it's not working. And one of the reasons why it's not working is because they aren't in alignment with where they need to be at this moment in time. They're not honoring their purpose and their dharma or their message, which also means saying the things that you want to say and standing up for the things that you want to stand up for. And I don't mean just blindly saying whatever pops in your head, but there is a core message and we can work on how to say that message. But honoring those things that you want to say or take a stand for, and not letting the fear and worry and concern or judgments of other people stop you from doing that. Fully love and embrace who you are and what you're here to say and do. And you have to know that that stuff will shift and change over time. Your purpose can change, your dharma can change, like mine has a lot over the last 10 years. And you'll feel it in your heart. You'll feel it in your soul. When you start to sit in more silence and meditate and do a lot of the things that you can do to build that connection to source or God or universe, you'll start to feel it in your heart. And you start to strip the version of who you were told to be. Because we've all been told who to be, whether that's what our parents told us or what we witnessed as a kid or what we saw in the movies or, the degree, like maybe it's because we have a certain degree or education in something, we think we need to do it. But when you start to strip away the version of who you've been told and step more into the version of who you are, you start to honor your purpose, dharma, and message a lot more. And that is one of the most beautiful forms of self-love in this industry and space, in my opinion. The next one is actually having boundaries. And this has been a hard one for me to put into place, but there's different boundaries. You know, for me, like boundaries were something I just never even knew existed. I'm like, I don't even know what a boundary is, right? And I was just always like, well, why am I feeling so exhausted in the business? Why am I starting to resent the students? Why am I not having fun? And it was because there was a lack of boundaries. And to be honest with you, it's caused a lot of problems in my life, not having boundaries and then learning how to put them into place and things like that. But, you know, there's a boundary around who controls your message. And so do you control your message? Does your team control your message? Does your copywriter control your message? And it's not like there's a right or a wrong answer. It's about finding the balance for you of like, who do you want to control your message? Who do you feel like, or what makes you feel good in your heart? Is it okay that if you have your message 70% dialed in and you let your team kind of adjust the other 30% or whatever it is? It doesn't matter. It's different for everyone, but you have to have a boundary around who controls your message, because if you don't, there's going to be people that come in and try to take your message and say things that you don't want them to say, or things that don't sound like you, or whatever it may be, and you may not be happy with. And I do think it's always good to get outside perspective. You don't want to like control your message 100%, I don't think. You want to listen to other people and things like that, but just knowing what feels good to you, what is in alignment with you. And also you have to measure what's actually working. But there's also boundaries around like team. How much access does the team have to you? When do they have access to you? How do they have access to you? Do they have access 24/7? Is it on Voxer, Slack, text message, phone calls? Like, what is that boundary to maintain that sort of sense of self, maintain that bounce inside of you, but also with students? Are students pushing the boundaries? Are they expecting things that were never expected? Do they expect you to respond within a minute of them posting in a Facebook group? And if the answer is yes, then maintaining the boundary. That means you just don't do it. You respond when you want to respond, or whatever was promised to them, and not bending and altering how you deliver on your promises. Those are all boundaries that create some sort of separation between you and other people. Otherwise, people are just going to pull and pull and pull and pull on you. And so boundaries are something that are going to allow you to keep your peace of mind, but also allow you to not get into anger, guilt, blaming other people, which again are all signs of not a lack of self-love. So we have to implement those boundaries. The next thing that we started to do is you have to give yourself some grace. Show some compassion for yourself. Are you treating yourself the same way you would treat a friend who's going through the same scenario as you? And understanding in removing the pressure of guilt and judgment within yourself. That's what grace is living a life without self-judgment, without the guilt, without feeling bad, and just accepting who you are and any mistakes that you may or may not have made, and just being okay with that. Give yourself some grace. It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. You got to understand every single person on this planet no one knows what they're doing. No one knows, man. Like, no one knows what they're actually doing. You might think we do, and anyone that tells you they do, I know exactly what I'm doing and how to get through life and blah, 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 might be a little bit more scared than you think they are. Because coming to an understanding of like, nothing's really within my control. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's kind of a scary place just to exist. A lot of people need that sort of control to feel grounded, but to feel grounded with, and also recognizing, I don't know what the hell's going on and I'm just here for it. Like, that's a very powerful place to operate from and be from. And it can be scary, but it takes a lot of grace to be able to go through that. The next thing that I started to do is just to honor the journey, not compare myself to other people or what I'm going through or where they're at and where I'm at, and just why me and self-pity and blah, 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 which, I had to first recognize I was doing a lot of that, but also be able to pull myself out of it and just honoring the journey of where I'm at. And, I feel like I've been through a lot on this journey of starting a business, and I've gone through a lot. And anytime I look back, I'm just so grateful for the hard times. And I feel like I've been through some really hard times, which means that like maybe in my future, there's even harder times, which I am hoping not, but I know that there will always be benefit or reason for it at the end. And knowing that, I chose this journey for a reason. I chose these things to happen to me for a reason. And I want to be able to honor the journey that I'm on, whether it's means I'm at the place I want to be or not. And just living in that self-acceptance of here's where I'm at and this is my journey. And I like it because it's mine. Number 5 is also taking action is another form of self-love. Not letting fear control. It's okay to be fearful, like have fear, like we're human. We're going to have that emotion to be afraid, to be worried, to be concerned. It's okay to have that, but it's not okay to let the fear and the worry and stuff control the actions or decisions or things that you want to do or need to do. And sometimes it can be a very hard thing to do is to move past that fear, but you also have to recognize everything will be okay. You look back at everything you've been through in this life, whether it's hard, easy, whatever, and here you are today and you're okay. Yeah, you might be going through a tough time or emotional time or something, but you're okay. We're all okay. And so you want to be able to honor that journey and to be able to take action on the things that you need to take action on. Because again, when you say, I'm going to let fear take over, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to do this. And you start to get into, I can't let go of that, or I can't. That's a lack of honoring your dharma and your purpose and your life. We got to just continue to take action on things that are going to be scary. And the beautiful part is those start to become normal. So all the things that used to scare you in the past probably are normal now, because the more you do it, the more familiar it becomes. And then the 6th thing is you got to honor, who you want to learn from, I think, in this business as well. That's a form of self-love too, is there's a lot of people to learn from. There's a lot of people that have different values. There's a lot of people that prioritize different things. And I think one of the biggest forms of self-love is honoring who you want to learn from, not getting yourself into an environment or a culture that just doesn't fit with who you are. And, for me, I don't get offended or worried when someone like just doesn't vibe with me, or they don't like my philosophy, or they don't like whatever, because I'm like, you know what, everyone's an individual human being with different values, different beliefs, different wants and desires. And if who I am doesn't align with them, then they shouldn't be here. They should go find someone else. And so what I find is, because there's so many different types of cultures in this space and people with values, people sort of like give bro marketers a bad name, but like, again, that's just a form of judgment. So what? There's people that align with them that like that. So let them find their people and you go find your people. But one of the biggest, I think, things you can do to get to kill the self-love is to like follow someone just because they have the results, follow someone because everyone else is doing it, to learn from someone just because you think they can help you. You got to like honor who you are and find someone that can help you that is also aligned with the version you want to be. And so it's a little bit of a short episode. Just some thoughts that were on my mind that I thought would make for a really good podcast episode and let you in on a little bit of the findings and discoveries I've made over the past 12 months on my own journey of going deeper into my own self-love and self-acceptance. And so I hope it helps you guys. If you guys like this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes. A couple of you guys just left us some reviews and it was really cool to read that. So thank you. And if you've been enjoying this podcast, go ahead, leave me a review. I love reading them, and I'll see you all next week. Take care, everyone.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check this out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.